In the city of Boston, on the 3rd of July, 1738, a boy was born to Irish immigrants Richard Copley and Mary Singleton. They named their newborn son John. From a young age, John Singleton Copley was interested in art and often drew and painted as a child. Little else is known about his early childhood, save the tragic loss of his father before he was 10 years old. His mother remarried Peter Pelham, an engraver, but Peter also passed away 3 years later, leaving Mary with a 13-year-old John and his half-brother Henry. However, in life, it is believed that Pelham had taught and encouraged his stepson in his aspirations to become an artist. For those 3 years, it is very likely that Pelham had taught young John his trade as an engraver, giving John an advantage over many other artists of the time. 2 years after his stepfather's death, John Copley published his first portrait, Reverend William Wellsteed, made in the style of his father's trade. Even in his young teens, Copley showed not only talent, but ambition. He sought to become not just an artist, but a history painter, one of the most prestigious art forms of the time. In addition to his encouragement from Pelham, John was also influenced by many other artists in the American colonies, such as John Schmibert and Joseph Blackburn. Copley was exposed to both their art styles and the styles of the old masters through copies they had made. They also assisted Copley by providing him paint and other art supplies. As the years progressed, Copley developed his own unique styles and preferences. He also had a very successful career as an artist, becoming famous for his many portraits, which he produced in many sizes and through many different mediums. Copley was also known for his bold color choices and for variety in his portraits. In some of his paintings, such as John Bohr's, he chooses dark background colors that match the dark brown of Bohr's coat, yet contrasts his face, which is deep in contemplation. Bohr's is portrayed as sitting in a casual manner, with one hand to his forehead and the other holding a book, which is possibly the subject of his contemplation. In paintings such as this, Copley is praised for his ability to portray his sitter's intelligence. In other paintings, such as Mrs. Daniel Denison Rogers Abigail Bromfield, he favors lighter, free-flowing colors. In a wind-blown scene of Bromfield looking out towards the viewer, her dress is white, contrasting the dark forest behind her, and favoring more toward the gentle blues of the sky and oranges of the sun at the horizon. Copley was also praised for his ability to use complementary colors to improve the contrast and his skill in producing accurate skin tones in his paintings. In 1766, Copley took the next step toward his ambition of becoming a history painter when he visited London and submitted his painting, Boy with a Squirrel, a portrait of his half-brother, to the Society of Artists. The picture received widespread praise from many artists and critics of the day. He was acknowledged to have remarkable talent, some artists, such as Benjamin West, going as far as to say as he could become one of the first painters in the world. Copley was also accepted into the society. However, this praise did not come without some criticism. Many were concerned that his talent would never fully develop if he remained in the colonies painting portraits, and encouraged him to study abroad. However, Copley turned down their offers and chose to remain in New England. His reason, according to his personal letters, was that he could not chase after his ambition at the expense of his mother and young brother. who depended on Copley's sizable income for their living. In 1768, Copley published another of his more famous portraits, Paul Revere. In the painting, Copley favors darker colors contrasting Revere's face. Revere, who will become one of the most famous patriots of the War for Independence, knew personally Copley, and when the artist offered to paint him. Revere was still a simple silversmith at the time, and was painted with the work of his trade, an unfinished silver teapot in his hand. Copley was once again praised for his ability to capture skin tone and expression. Today, the painting is better known as a professional image of a famous patriot, and also the uncanny resemblance to the modern star actor Jack Black. On November 16, 1769, Copley married Susanna Farnham Clark, the daughter of Richard and Elizabeth Clark, both parents being from wealthy merchant families. The two had a happy marriage and 6 children, but unfortunately only 3 survived to adulthood. A few years after Copley married, he made plans to return to Europe to further his skills as an artist. He started in London before traveling further south. He toured Europe, visiting many famous artists and viewing many renowned paintings. As a result, his own art further developed, and he produced many new paintings, such as The Ascension. In The Ascension, Copley shows how much he had been influenced by his travels in Europe. He shows the disciples in traditional poses of shock and disbelief, with hands outstretched. Christ is shown in white garbs and surrounded by a brilliant golden light, using gold in its classic use of portraying divinity, as is typical in Byzantine art. In the same year as he published The Ascension, the American War for Independence began. Copley, who had been friends with both the Patriot and Loyalist ranks, wanted no part in the war. That year he returned to London, where he would be joined by his family, who also fled the colonies. In the year 1778, Copley published one of his most famous paintings, Watson and the Shark. The painting gave Copley the renown he had longed for since he was a boy. In this painting, Copley differed from what was considered the norm of the day, taking a child's traumatic experience into a dramatic light usually reserved for famous heroes. In the image, Watson is portrayed as a grown man instead of a young boy, reaching out for his companions to save him from the charging shark. It is worth noting the symbolism in the painting. Watson was from a family of slave traders, and the image takes place in an Indian port. During that time, slavers would often throw sick and dying slaves overboard so that they would qualify for insurance. Sharks were known to gather in these waters to feast upon the bodies. Watson is portrayed in that same dangerous situation. He is even seen to be reaching out toward the slave in the boat, as if begging forgiveness from him. Copley had by now achieved his dream of becoming a history painter, having secured a successful career and wide fame. For many more years, Copley continued to produce highly praised paintings until his death in 1895 from a stroke. A talented artist from a young age, Copley aspired to become a great painter, which was a dream he would eventually come to see fulfilled. In his life, he created many great and often unorthodox paintings, some of which proved to be controversial in nature. Copley would go down in history as one of the first, if not the first, great painters from the American colonies.